Hi, Micah here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about ultrasound. So, what is ultrasound? I'm pretty sure, like me, most of us think that that's the thing that you do right when you find out that you're pregnant. Once your baby's grown a little bit, you go in, you get a little picture, you get a sonogram, and you see your baby for the first time. And it's like, oh, this is real. I'm having a baby. And then you take that picture and you show your friends, and that's a sonogram, right? But this is a clinical choice that we have in our birthing process. And ultrasound actually is a little more than that. It's more than just some innocent scan of our baby, a little picture that we get to take inside of our womb. Um, where does it come from? So, ultrasound actually came from the original use was to send sonic waves underwater to test for submarines, to find other submarines. So this was invented in World War II and was war technology. In 1955, a surgeon named Ian MacDonald in Glasgow, he discovered that he could use this technology. He got a machine and started sending it through meat and realized that it produced different sounds depending on the tissues. So he started using it on human tissue to recognize tumors. At some point, they realized that you could also do this to send pulses through the belly, through the abdomen, and look at the fetus. So this began to be used in 1963. They invented commercial machines for ultrasound. I'm looking at some notes over here, but and was starting to be used in the 1970s as a norm in obstetricians. So what happened is that this moved quite rapidly, right? Like this was developed in the 50s and then started being used in the 63. They made a machine and was being used widely in the 70s. So not a lot of research was made before this machine and this technology was just sent worldwide. So what do we know about ultrasound? Ultimately, as I said, it sends these high frequency sound waves into your abdomen to see what is in there. The waves are actually 20 million cycles per second. Now, this is really fast sound waves being sent into your abdomen, so fast you cannot hear them. The average audible sound is 20,000 cycles of audible per second. So 20 million versus 20,000. You can just think that's a large number of difference. Now, surely this isn't that big of a deal. You're just sending sound waves into the belly. What's up with that, right? But the thing is that this has an effect. So the sound waves actually cause a heating of the tissue. So anything that is being touched by this sound wave is being heated. And that means that all of you is being, like the parts are being heated, but also parts of your baby. Different tissues heat at different levels, according to how thick and how the viscosity of the tissue. So you may be having tissues heated at pretty high levels in your growing fetus. Now, it also causes this thing called cavitation, which is essentially like affects the bubbles that hold gas in our bodies. So like think about your lungs or in your bowels, any place where you have little bubbles and capillaries that are holding gas, and it can cause the bleeding. It has effects that we're not even sure of yet because honestly, there just haven't been enough studies done. So this cavitation actually could have quite a serious effect on a growing fetus, also on all of the cells that are developing and protecting that baby inside of you. So, what we have to realize is that sometimes there isn't even enough research happening with the things that are being considered routine. So this is just a great example of something that is just a normal routine thing that actually might have a lot of side effects. Some of the side effects that we're aware of right now, again, is that this causes cavitation, that there is a heating of tissue, that there's also cell permeability effects. So it affects the ability of the cells to receive nutrients. And this could have some really long-term effects and actually has effects that proceed for generations. So the effects of ultrasound actually don't just affect your baby, they affect generations to come, whatever those effects are. So some of the things that we've seen is possibly damage and effects on the central nervous system, neurocell migration. These are the cells moving up the spine to form your brain. So this could lead to even autism or dyslexia. And the other thing is that this actually produces a sound in the womb. So your baby is hearing this sound, and it could be quite a loud sound moving through the amniotic fluid into your baby's ear as they are being scanned, sometimes even as they are coming out in the birthing process, we're being scanned continuously, this loud penetrative sound as we're entering the world. So just something to really consider as we think about, what ultrasound is and these handheld machines that maybe are being used. What is that? Because that actually could be a Doppler, which actually sends an even higher pulsed sound frequency. So it may look more innocuous and less dangerous, but could be actually sending even more ultrasound and heat into your baby. So now, why do we use ultrasound, right? Well, definitely we want to generally see that our baby is safe. Like, we want to know that our baby exists. We want to see a picture of the baby. Now, you can feel your belly as time goes on, right? You can connect to your baby in other ways. So there are other ways to connect into our baby, to use our intuition, to return to that primal time when we didn't have this technology, to recognize that we have a changing body and that we have a connection to the child. Yes, it is possible that there are risks that can be seen and determined with an ultrasound. The thing is that there are also a lot of things that are seen with ultrasound that are not certain, and ultrasound has other risks involved with it. So I'm going to read right here, just straight from, this is Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering by Dr. Sarah Buckley. It's an amazing book, but she says to talk about ultrasound on humans, that the adverse effects include premature ovulation, preterm labor or miscarriage, low birth weight, poor condition at birth, perinatal death, dyslexia, delayed speech development, and less right-handedness, non-right-handedness. So this could actually be disrupting and damaging to a developing brain. And it actually more than doubles the risk of perinatal death compared to babies unexposed to Doppler. So ultimately, the effects are super serious if you think about what the benefit is, that you could potentially mitigate a risk that might be uncertain at best. Then when we talk about the risks, really we have to just ask ourselves, what are we willing to deal with in our child? So ultimately, if our baby came out with Down, like, what are you going to do with the results of an ultrasound? And that's a really deep question to begin with. If you're thinking about doing an ultrasound to see if your baby might have some factors or indicators for some kind of disability or risk, then I would ask, what if it's a yes? Would you terminate pregnancy? Is that the outcome you're looking for? Would you decide to love that child anyway? And then the question becomes, do you need to know? So there are a lot of adverse effects to thinking that something could even be wrong. And so this is another thing I want to talk about is mindset. One thing that happens with ultrasound sometimes is that if you get an ultrasound and say there is a flag that now we want to look into, well, now I'm nervous and I'm scared because I have a flag. And so we start to look. I'm probably going to have to get a test. I might follow some procedure. That whole time that I'm waiting for the answer, I'm now stressed out. And this is all going into the baby. I'm thinking something's wrong. I'm scared. I'm waiting. This whole time I'm thinking my baby's not okay. And that's just a lot of energy that we're subjecting our little child to, that's not even born, and that's not even certain, not to mention the tests and possible injections that are going to be following. So then what if it just all comes out negative and you're just fine, which happens much of the time. So there is a lot of maybe unnecessary exposure to fear and misdiagnosis that is available with ultrasound when we're using them to look for risks and to look for these indicators of concern. Now, everybody has their own choice, so it's up to you. I just want to, bring to mind that we always have, again, brand. So benefits, risks, alternatives, and then to do nothing before we make a decision. So just to remember that we don't have to ultrasound. You do not have to have somebody listening to your baby through a Doppler. You don't have to. You can make alternative decisions. If we do use ultrasound, then there are some things that you can consider, because maybe you do just want to make sure. Maybe you don't decide to take a picture because, yes, I see that this baby is growing inside me, and that's okay. But at some point, I do want to just do a check and make sure everything's okay. Then at that point, we just want to be really sure that we're clear about the information that we want to be told, so that we receive and, safeguard our mindset for this growing body inside of us, that we only have the ultrasound for certain amounts of time so that it doesn't overheat any tissue. So you can ask for a control over the amount of time, and also that we get an operator with a certain amount of skill, because another thing is that many operators of ultrasound machines don't actually have that much education. So they don't really know what they're doing. It doesn't require a lot of education. They don't even know really what they're looking for besides some little picture that's showing them on a machine. So we want to just be aware of who is doing the ultrasound, how long they're doing it for, what kind of information we actually want to receive, and what we do or do not want to be told. So that way we take our power back in our technocratic model, right? So it's okay that we like to use the system sometimes, and definitely the doctor system and Western medicine has its place and purpose. And this is one of the clinical choices that we have in our Western society that we can or do not have to take advantage of. So to remind us, we always have the right to refusal, and you have the right to consent too. So you can consent at any time during your pregnancy, during your birthing process. You can change your mind. You can decide, I'm done. I don't want to have this listened to anymore. I don't want a Doppler. I'm complete. You can say, actually, I do want it. I'm scared right now. I want to listen. So it's always in your right to change your mind. And now you just have a little bit more information, because we always want to come with the most information so that we can choose what's right for us. And what I want to end with is that the biggest voice inside is yours. You and the baby know what's right for you. So I hope you enjoyed this little video about ultrasound and kind of where it comes from, and maybe some of the risks that are there. But also there's always a time and a place for this technology. That's why it exists. So may you make the best choice for you and your child with some more information.